get together and we just gab about what's happening in sports, and we'll talk a little bit about college basketball, we'll talk about baseball, we'll talk about whatever comes to mind. But let's start out with what's going on in Pittsburgh, because apparently they're stockpiling quarterbacks in Pittsburgh. Is that correct?
How weird.
It's rather an unusual concept, but the Steelers feel like they have the nucleus. They have a young football team, and they have the nucleus for what's going to be a very good football team. They did not have the QB. Suddenly, here comes Russell Wilson, and the Steelers pay him what he wanted, which isn't all that much, and the Denver Broncos are the one who have to absorb the rest of his contract, which is $39 million a year. Okay, that was understood. Just get him out of here. All right, the Steelers sign him, but it's unknown by Pittsburgh how much he has left in the tank. So, with the understanding that they could get Josh Fields from the Chicago Bears, traded for him, with the understanding that Fields is an up-and-coming quarterback. I'm surprised the Bears let him go. Yeah. But they decided to. Obviously, Chicago's going to go for Caleb Williams now. But Pittsburgh, thinking Russell Wilson may have 1 or 2 more years remaining as a viable quarterback, get the younger Josh Fields in there to absorb all the lessons and perhaps emerge as their new leader. It's a concept that's a gamble, but what is not a gamble these days?
I find it really interesting, because this really, of all the organizations to do this, Pittsburgh is not the one that you would think of that would do something like this. They have really been based on homegrown quarterbacks throughout their career, or throughout the existence of the team, and now they have signed one who was cut by the Broncos, and they've traded for another. How do you think, Ned and Josh, I'll ask both of these guys this question, how do you think this is going to work? Because Justin Fields, who's been a starter, now has to step back and sit behind Russell Wilson. And how does Russell Wilson feel? Because he has to know already, if things don't go well, he's on the clock and he may be on the bench again this year.
Well, it's a question of realism more than anything else. Wilson certainly realizes where he is chronologically and how much he has left. And in Fields' case, does my paycheck change? It does not. Therefore, yeah, I'll do what they want, with the understanding that somewhere along the line I'm going to get a whole lot more.
Yeah, and I think that's probably how they approached it with Fields was, hey, man, we're going to bring you in here. You're going to be the backup to Russell Wilson for a couple of years. You're going to absorb all the knowledge that you can from him, like you said earlier, and then you're going to be our guy. We want you to be our guy, but we want you to learn from this guy first.
I fully agree. I think that's how it works.
The money, if the money didn't change, then why wouldn't he do that?
Are either one of you surprised at the team that's involved in this, though? Because, like I said, this is not the MO of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I am surprised. I was surprised when you guys started texting about it, because I was like, the Pittsburgh Steelers are trading for quarterbacks. It's not their norm. It's not the normal way that they've built their teams, but maybe they realize that they can't do it that way anymore. I mean, the way that they've always produced their quarterbacks and built their team is a more antiquated way, and it hasn't really worked for them in the last few years, as shown by their record and the talent that's kind of dwindled from their team. So I think I applaud them for saying, hey, let's change the way we do it and see what happens.
The days of Bobby Lane or Terry Bradshaw or Ben Roethlisberger are gone.
Yeah.
You don't really find that anymore in the NFL because of the nature of the football game. So what they're doing now is just changing their philosophical approach. Hey, Pittsburgh's an old, long-time NFL franchise, been around forever and ever. And what they have to change like everybody else. It's part of the game, so no, that didn't surprise me at all.
It does, because this organization has a real track record and MO of the way that they do things. They keep the head coach. They bring in homegrown quarterbacks. They are willing to suffer through some bad years, knowing that they will turn it around at some point, be back in contention. So for them to do this, I personally kind of shocked by it.
Well, and like I said, I was surprised too, because I agree with you to the extent that their old school philosophy is what has gotten them all the championships they've got. But I do think that the writing was kind of on the wall the last few years with them. They have not done well. And so I think they finally put their heads together and said, okay, maybe we should try something different. And like Ned said, it's all a gamble. So Russell Wilson is a big gamble, in my opinion, because it seems like everywhere he goes, he fails of his own accord for some reason. I don't know
Well,
what's going
he
on.
still has a lot of talent. And keep in mind now, the Rooney family, which still has, and they may not have the total financial ownership that they had, but the Rooney family still has a lot of influence, and that's how they think. These are not dumb people.
Oh, no.
They know how to operate, and they know that change is necessary, and I think that's what they're doing. This is the Steelers now, and these guys and franchise go a long, long way. They have a lot of backing from the public. They always have had. It's although I do remember days when the Steelers were not very good at all back, in the 60s and 70s and all that sort of thing until a guy named Bradshaw came along.
Well, and I've seen early highlights of Bradshaw where he's dropping back to pass and the ball falls out of the back of his hand.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
yeah.
His first year, as a matter of fact, which would have been about, I'm going to guess around maybe 70, in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
His first year, they finished 2-11. They played 12 games. I beg pardon, it was 2-10, I guess, is what they finished. But the fact is that he was not good at all.
Right.
And then magically, they got the talent in there, it all clicked, and they became champions.
Well, that defense is what really set them up,
Mm-hmm.
the steel curtain.
Well,
And they
there's-
drafted wisely.
They were just a really good team at that point. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you look at Franco Harris and Lynn Swan was on that team, and you mentioned the defense. They were really good. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, you can do so by texting us at 417-863-7104. That is our text number. Please put your name on that with your question or comment, and we will discuss while we're on the air. Let's shift gears a little bit. And the Chiefs made a move this week. They signed, they made a couple of moves this week, but the big one was Hollywood Brown. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's Marquise Brown from the Arizona Cardinals. He's a guy who has been around. He's an Oklahoma kid. He's All-American at Oklahoma after a couple of years of JUCO football. He's not real big. Hollywood, and he didn't coin the name Hollywood. It was given to him by, I'm not going to say his name, but a Fox broadcaster, a Fox Sports broadcaster. Maybe because he behaved like some kind of Hollywood whatever. But Marquise is a good player. He's only about 5'8", 5'9", somewhere around there, but very quick and has a lot of good receiving skills. They never manifested themselves with the Arizona Cardinals because of the constant change in quarterbacks. Kyler Murray was only there last year for a short time with injuries keeping him out. So Brown never really was able to get into the scheme of things. But the Chiefs seem to think that he can fit the bill as a wide receiver. And I guess, not knowing the financial circumstances, but I guess he fits the financial bill too. I think the biggest story about the Chiefs, though, is the fact that nobody's picked up on L'Jarius Sneed. They're teams who are interested, the Colts and the Titans. But evidently, according to the reports, Mr. Sneed wants too much money and too long-term a guarantee. And these teams are not willing to pay that sort of thing, so the Chiefs may have him for another year as their franchise player.
I hope so.
Well, good as far as the talent's concerned, but what does that do to their salary cap? Bogus as it might be, it still does affect the salary cap.
Yeah, it's true.
Derek Nottie was re-signed this week, too, and that was a good move because he's, I think, a very underrated player with the Chiefs.
Well, Nottie's been in there quite a bit, and he's been with them for several years through several championships, and he's another one who perhaps has tested the free agent market and found out that, hey, life is not all that rosy and glory, and the guys like Chris Jones and people like that are few and far between. So, yeah, maybe the monies aren't as spectacular as the media would like you to believe, or their thoughts about themselves are a little bit overblown. You're seeing it in baseball, especially with a couple of big-name players who are still sitting out as the season approaches. But the same thing in football, although there's a long way to go before any of the deals are finalized.
Josh, were you surprised at anything the Chiefs did this week, or what are your thoughts on Marquise Brown joining the Chiefs?
I think, he has a lot of potential. So it seems to me, I didn't realize he was as short as he is. So maybe now that makes me think maybe they're trying to put a Tyreek Hill type player back on the field because they really do feel like they missed out on that speed that he had. So I think it's a fine move. As long as they didn't pay him a ton of money because he hasn't proven that he's worth it yet in his career. I think it's a good move. They need receivers. They need some receivers to step up and be the number one guy and take some pressure off of Kelsey. And so I think this could do it.
They also signed another guy, too, Irv Smith. Got him in a deal from the Cincinnati Bengals, who's a free agent. Irv Smith is a tight end who played his college football for those guys down in Tuscaloosa.
Oh,
and
that's right. I remember that name.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. He's not a Kelsey, but he is a backup to Kelsey.
Yeah, and he's more of he caught some passes for Alabama, but they don't pass that much, let alone to the tight end. He was a good blocker,
a good blocker.
He's a big guy.
So all these moves going on, there's still some big names out there in the free agency market. What do you see the Chiefs doing here in the next couple of weeks to kind of as they go into the draft?
Nothing.
Really?
Mm-mm.
You think they're all done?
I don't think they can do anything. I think they're so limited at not wanting to go over the franchise tag, and I'm sorry, the the limit that they have, salary cap.
Yeah.
They don't want to go over that. It's no team ever has, and they don't want to be the ones who flirt with it or anything like that. So I think they're probably limited. After all, you have to put aside a certain amount of money to pay for the draft choices, although there is a cap on what you pay them. So you already know what that's going to be. Mm-hmm. The highest round draft choice can get something like $8 million or something like that, and then it gradually, the scale goes down. But you already know how much you can pay, so you can put aside that amount of money. But as far as dealing any free agents, I can't see them doing anything.
You don't think there'll be a Snead trade here?
Not the way it's going now, no. Mm-mm.
Interesting. Josh, what about you?
I kind of agree with Ned. I think at this point, they got Chris Jones. Mahomes was kind enough to restructure his contract to create some cap room, and so they could get that. So I'm thinking that Ned's probably right. They've set the money aside for their draft picks, and now they're just waiting to see about Snead. So they probably have some money ready to pay him if he decides.
Oh yeah, they have to.
This is where I'm going to be, and so I just can't imagine there aren't any other giant wide receivers on the market. So are there?
There's a few names out there, but we kind of discussed this last week. It's guys like Odell Beckham Jr. and some other players that you go, do you really want to spend that much money? I just looked it up really quickly. It said after signing Marquise Brown, the Chiefs have $9.26 million left in their cap.
That's not very much, guys.
No, it's not. But it's better than the $1 million that they had last week.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after signing him, and that does not include, at least I assume it doesn't, what Jerry Snead would have, which is $20 million. It's 19.8, which is $20 million. Yeah. So that is a salary cap hit as well. So they don't have a whole lot of money to deal with. I think they stay put with where they are. Come on, they're 2-time Super Bowl champions, and they want to be the very first ever 3-time Super Bowl champs. Can they do that? And again, I'm being negative here, I don't want to say devil's advocate, but that's not what it is. But you have to go back to the days of Hank Stram when he ran the Chiefs. He stayed and loved those older players, and they went downhill precipitously after that Super Bowl win over the Minnesota Vikings. And the day they left it on the field, which was Christmas Day, 1971, when they played the Dolphins, and at the 6 overtime game, longest game in history, and lost that game, never the same since then.
Interesting. It's funny because I do enjoy reading. I have Bleacher Report on my phone, and that's where I get most of my, immediate news updates and stuff. But they post a lot of what's going on in the fan forums or Twitter or whatever it's called now. And I found it really interesting. There was some guy, actually 2 guys, arguing the other day that the Chiefs would keep Kadarius Toney and that he would be a Chief next year because they really, really love this guy.
Kadarius Toney?
Yeah. That's something that they said. They said 2 guys are like, come on, they love this guy. He's going to be with the team next year for sure. They're not going to make any moves. And so far, he's still on the roster.
They love a guy who threw the franchise under the bus on Twitter or whatever you call it now and called them Oh, I don't remember what name it was. They love this guy? I don't think they do.
They benched him because he couldn't catch a ball.
Yeah.
And so, okay.
And was
Well,
also
that's the beauty
offside
of
on a game
fandom.
that they had won.
That's the beauty of fandom. You can live the fantasy you want to live.
Well, the thing that's kind of interesting I'm just looking over the Chiefs' depth chart right now, and the one area that's really stark to me that kind of frightens me, and that they'll probably have to focus on in the draft is their offensive line. Is they do not have any depth there at all right now.
They lost their depth.
Yep, they're in serious trouble right now. If anybody gets hurt in that offensive line, they only have 3 guys to back up, period.
They let go of Alec Reddy. He went to the Washington Commanders, and he was a major backup to Tooney when he didn't play in the Super Bowl.
Did they get rid of number 74, the right tackle?
Juwan Taylor is still with the team.
He's still with them.
Yep.
He's still with them. They've got to teach him. 1, 2, 3. Just count, son. Just count. You know what the count's going to be. Don't have an illegal procedure or false start. How many did he have last year? 11, 12, 13, something?
They focused on him. There was one, I think the first game of the season he played, some announcer, it may have been Collinsworth, who kept saying, he's offsides, he's offsides, he's offside. And then it just was a snowball effect that apparently somebody in the front office said, you guys need to watch him. And they did, and they nailed him a bunch. And he got caught on some really big holding penalties, too.
It's true.
Some really big. But when he's right, you see him stand up right, which is something you look for your blockers. He's standing up tall and straight, and he become a wall for Patrick Mahomes.
He's a huge man.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's strong, too. It's just that's the fundamental stuff that he's got to stop doing.
It was picked up, in my opinion, by the other club from which he had played, and it absorbed in his mindset to the point where he's having trouble breaking that skein of things. But it all goes to coaching. You discipline the guy, and sometimes you discipline them monetarily.
Yeah.
You fine them if they don't come through and do the right thing.
Actually, offensively as a whole, the Chiefs are looking a little thin we're sitting obviously in March.
Yeah.
It's a long ways to go before the season starts. They're going to fix a lot of these things, but just when I'm sitting here and looking at the depth chart, they don't have somebody as a backup quarterback for Patrick Mahomes this year. You don't have that kind of name or somebody that you feel, this guy can be serviceable.
When we were talking about all the free agents that they had to consider, most of them were offensive.
Yeah.
The backup running backs and other receivers and players like that they're like, well, they're going to let them go. They'll let them go. Because when we went through and did that, most of them they're going to let them go. So then suddenly they've got to put somebody else in that spot or they don't have any depth.
And I guess I slept on this. What happened to Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Did he?
No, he's still with the team.
He is not on their roster. They're
well,
not
I
showing
think
him
they if they traded him, I did not see it.
Interesting. I guess we'll try to follow up on that as we go along here.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything either.
Yeah, defensively they look basically the same as they did last year, except Willie Gay is obviously gone now, but Drew Tranquill proved himself to be very, very good, and Leo Chanel's still there, Nick Bolton's still there, and as you mentioned, L'Jarius Sneed is still with the team, and hopefully the Chiefs can get something done to kind of either make a trade here. You think there's a team
they can't do anything with them as far as a contract because that franchise tag is solid.
Yeah. And
it's $19.8 million. Well, the guy can play. There's no question about that. He wasn't – Sneed was not a big name in college. Heck, he was a 4th or 5th round draft choice somewhere along the line. Mm-hmm. He made the team through his own talent. And as a matter of fact – at Louisiana Tech, where he played, he was not a big star, but the Chiefs saw something in him and got him to be able to become a leader in that defensive backfield. That's what he is. Now, he's not a kid. What is he, 26, 27 years old, somewhere around there?
He is 27.
27. Already, I don't think he had any serious injuries that would slow him up. So welcoming him back would be pretty good, but it does inhibit them financially.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about college basketball and spring training baseball. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Welcome back to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. If you've got a comment or question for us, you can always text us at 863-7104. Put your name on that so we can address your question to the appropriate spot. Ned Reynolds, Joe Westen, Josh Roberts with us. We're all together this morning, hanging out, talking about sports. It's March Madness. It's right here. It's right now. Upsets going on. It's already happening, Ned. I mean, I saw Houston lost yesterday.
It's not going to affect them any, Joe. They'll still be a number one for whatever region they're put in. And I suspect it's going to be the Southwest or West or South, whatever it is, whatever regions the NCAA decides on this year. Houston will still be a number one. Yeah, they did lose, which lends you to believe that this is going to be a wide-open tournament that anybody could win. My 4 picks for the top seeds are Houston, Connecticut, Purdue, and North Carolina. And the North Carolina team also lost yesterday in their championship game. Now get this, they lost it to North Carolina State.
Yep.
And North Carolina State guys would not even have been in the tournament had they not won their championship of the league. They had to do that by winning 5 games in 5 days.
Cinderella.
It can be done, and it was done by the Wolfpack.
The ghost of Jim Valvano is strong.
He was right there watching over them. How about that? 5 games in 5 days. And this is the Atlantic Coast Conference now. You're talking about a very physical league with a lot going on, and these kids survived that pressure, and then they beat the Tar Heels in the big game last night. I watched a little bit of it because the Tar Heels starting point guard, Elliot Cadeau, played at Link Academy last year and was the star of their championship team. He is really, really a good player.
I saw Purdue also lost too, didn't they?
Purdue did. They lost to Wisconsin by 1 in overtime. But again, anything can happen, and that's why these teams will still be right there when it's all over.
Well, I think that's the beauty of college basketball is it's one of the few sports where you can still have an underdog.
Oh yeah,
get a really good upset. You can have the 16 beat the 1 or the 15 beat the 2 and things like that. So that's what I like about it is it's a game that is a lot more on an equal level game to game than some other sports.
Then you might talk about, and we can carry this one further because this coming football season, we go to 12 teams in the playoffs as opposed to 4, and there is already talk of expanding that to 14 teams. Now, it won't be this year, of course, but perhaps later on in the next couple of years, making it a 14-team playoff. So do you have the Cinderella playing football like that? Not likely, because it's an altogether different scheme of things.
Well, yeah, you're going to get those Cinderella teams in there that are going to be like the 11 or 12 seed, but they're going to have to play the number 1 or the number 3. And, yeah, college football is a different animal when it comes to that.
Which do you like better? I mean, do you like the opportunity that when you watch these games that's out of nowhere, a Dayton team can come through?
Yes, I do. And basketball, again, you can't really compare the sports. Basketball is 5 guys, or if you want to take the total rosters, usually 8 on 8 because there always are 3 or 4 key substitutes. Mm-hmm. In football, you have 47 players out there, right, and it's an altogether different level of circumstance, so it's unfair to compare the two of them. I do like the basketball one.
I'll tell you this, Joe. As an longtime Alabama fan, I like them to be dominant. I don't like the idea of the underdog in college football, but that's what I love about college basketball is there is still an opportunity for some team out of nowhere to come through and get hot and win 4 or 5 games in a row, and suddenly they're in the Final Four or maybe the championship game. I love that.
It's always kind of fun to see the graphics go up about this team hasn't played in the tournament since 1977,
right,
and that they're actually knocking on the door to go into the tournament. And it's fun. I think for me, we've talked about this before. My father passed away a few years back. He was a huge college basketball fan, and I was into it by extension.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he passed away, I lost a lot of interest in it. But I think that I would definitely call myself less than a casual fan of college basketball. And it's not that I don't like it. It's just I just don't pay that much attention to it anymore. Is that I like the fact that you can kind of pick it up wherever you want to and get into it again. It doesn't have the same, and Ned, you can just feel free to disagree with me, but it doesn't seem to have the same marquee players or teams like it used to have. It's still got the blue blood teams, but you see all these other teams floating in and out. Houston back again this year. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I can't disagree with you because I fall into that same category. I used to be, and again, guys, age figures into this too. I used to be riveted on every game that happened. I find that's not the case anymore. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the numbers of teams that are involved and maybe locally with the passion that we had for our team here. Do you remember, guys, and I know you do, when Missouri State went Division I in 1981, and 5 years later, they're into the NCAA tournament. This was huge, and beating Clemson, and thousands of people going to the games in Atlanta and Los Angeles and Dayton, Ohio, and Austin, Texas, and places. Hey, this was great. The passion was there. And now, all of a sudden, it is not there. Well, there are factors involved, including changes of personnel and things like that, but also changes in how we feel. Nothing is forever, and I think perhaps the focus has differed a little bit now on college basketball. I like the makeup of this year's team. Yeah, you have a Houston. Where's UCLA? Why aren't they in there? And maybe some of these others, the North Carolinas and the Dukes. KU will be in the tournament, but they won't be a number one seed. I was telling the guys yesterday, watching Houston, Houston playing in the Big 12 championship game against Iowa State. Houston, Iowa State. Where's Kansas? Where's Kansas? They're always in
don't they
there.
get a bye to the finals every year? Yeah. It's the big name coaches are kind of disappearing from college basketball too, because you don't have Mike Krzyzewski anymore. You don't have Bob Knight.
Or Dean Smith.
I guess Rick Pitino, Bill Smith,
John Wooden at UCLA.
Right.
88 straight victories. No, you don't have those people. Guy Lewis at Houston when Elvin Hayes played for the teams. Hey, these coaches were big names.
Yeah.
But no, it's
a new generation.
That's
so
just
we're hoping that some of these coaches that are here now that are getting this success, that they become that next group of coaches that 10 years from now we're like, oh, yeah, this guy is on par to be one of the greatest and challenging.
Bill Self at Kansas, he's been there a long time. Mm-hmm.
Rick Pitino, if he'd quit cheating, would be a much better coach.
Gosh, he has been all over. He's been at Memphis, at Kentucky, the Boston Celtics, Providence, Iona, and now he is St. John's.
Well, didn't he coach Louisville too?
Oh, of course. That's where he got in trouble. Louisville, of course.
Kenny, what, Missouri State, do you think?
I'm sorry?
Missouri State?
Come on, Pitino.
They're looking for a new coach right now, but I have a feeling that new coach may, again, it's just a feeling, I don't know, may still be coaching, and you can't interfere with that profession.
Right. Oh, really? So what have you heard over the last week? Because last week you broke the story when we were on the air that Dana Ford was no longer with the Missouri State program. Is there anything that you can pass along to us that you've heard during the course of the week? Not
in terms of names or anything like that, but just that it's a search that involves maybe some coaches at what's considered to be a lower level at D2. I don't consider that to be lower. It's just a different phase. And then others who, in my opinion, and this is simply my opinion, as being a long-timer here, I think somebody who has an identity with the program is the individual or individuals in whom the committee should be looking. Somebody who identifies with Missouri State. We brought in, and I'm not knocking the coaches at all, not knocking anybody at all, but individuals who we have there now do not have an association with this college and with what has been achieved in the past. And I really feel like that history is very important. That's a personal opinion, and I'll take the blame or the criticism for whomever wants to throw it at me, which I'm sure is thousands.
Well, but I agree with you, Ned. I mean, when you look at collegiate athletics, they look for the people that love that school on the top level. I mean, that's what they want. They want a coach who does have that history with the program or history with the university or college, so that they are more vested in it.
I've always been amused at the coaches who get new jobs and they come on the press conference and all that, and the first thing they say, I have always wanted to be here. Where are we anyway?
What's the name of this town?
Why, do you have a name that you could?
It would be.
I mean, do you have a name of somebody that you would think that would be a good fit for the job as you're describing?
Yes, I do. And if I think that Rodney Perry at Kansas State, who's an assistant there, played for Spoon Hour, has coached all over. I think he would be a brilliant candidate for it. Nice. I think Blake Ahern, who was one of our star guards back in Barry Hinson's early years in the early 2000s, he is an associate head coach with the Memphis Grizzlies right now. But he has a strong identification with here. Drew Richards, who's coaching D2 in North Carolina right now, has had championship teams down there, and he's former Bears center along with Ahern. They were both players on those teams. But that's what I'm talking about, individuals who identify strongly with their alma mater and who have associations with the area. That's again, it's my opinion, and this is a free society. We can talk about whatever we want.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. I like that idea, though. I agree with you. They should do that. They should find somebody like that who understands that program, has history with the program, and wants it to get better.
And not only a coach, but administration.
Yeah, agree.
I found it interesting because after Dana Forbes let go, I went and looked at his overall record with Missouri State.
102-86, I think.
It's not bad.
Oh, no.
Not bad at all.
He got a team to the NIT 2 years ago. Didn't succeed in the NIT, but it was a postseason bid. But like he told me last week, he said, I'm just sorry that I couldn't get a team in the NCAA. Well, we haven't been in the NCAA for almost 1999. That's what going on 30 years, 25 years.
That's
so it
team?
Isn't necessarily his fault. It's just the way things have been.
That's Steve Alford's team? 99?
Steve Alford. Steve Alford's Sweet 16 team in 1999. Yep. That was the last time, not only the last time for Sweet 16, last time, period, in the NCAA.
Wow. Well, it's time we get back there.
Yeah, I agree.
God, long overdue.
All right.
Long overdue.
When we come back, we'll chat a little bit about baseball, if I can say it.
Baseball,
if I can say it. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
After I so cavalierly, I just can't talk today. I don't know what it is. I just can't talk. I'm tired. I think that's it.
Was cavalier the word you're trying to get out?
Yeah, Well, I was trying to make it into a verb.
Cavalier. You can't.
I was verbing it up.
You
sort of like a functionality, not a word.
Well, you can make functionality because it is a verb, but cavalier is a straight name. You can't. But you did make reference to Virginia, and University of Virginia will probably be in this big tournament.
What I was trying to get to was that I said we talk about spring training and baseball, but you mentioned that there's high school basketball still going on. You want to talk about that real quick?
It's not still going on. It ended all yesterday. The 2 weeks up in Columbia, I wish it was down here because having it at the Great Southern Bank Arena, as it was for the past 5 years, was really, really great and convenient, and I thought our crowds were real good. Now, what the crowds were up in Mizzou, I don't know, but that's where the state has decided to continue holding on to it. But we did have a number of Southwest Missouri teams in total during the last 2 weeks. Chadwick won the boys' Class State 1 championship. Hartville and Wablo played for the title. Hartville won it. Obviously, Wablo was second. That's in Class 3 boys. In Class 3 girls, Skyline from Urbana was the state champion.
Cross Timbers.
Yeah, it's Urbana Cross Timbers, or Preston Cross Timbers, or whatever they call that up there. And Norwood finished in fourth place. In Class 3 boys, you had Thayer finishing in third, but the state championship was won by Fairgrove for the second straight year.
Nice.
And they beat El Dorado Springs, which is also an area team. Class 4, Rogersville went up to the Mizzou Arena and took third place. The Marshfield girls took third place. The Central boys took third place. And the Kickapoo Lady Chiefs took Incarnate Word to 10 points and finished in second. It was 53-43 Incarnate Word won.
Wow. A lot of great basketball going on.
Awesome.
I think it's total 12, if I'm not mistaken. 12 teams bringing back hardware from up in Columbia. That's pretty doggone good.
Very, very nice. Let's talk about baseball. Okay. It has been decided that the opening day pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals will be Michaelis. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's kind of by default more than anything else. It was to have been Sonny Gray, but he's still out because of the hamstring, although that hamstring injury is beginning to risk the treatment and so forth. But he probably won't be ready until maybe day 2 or day 3. The Cardinals open on the road, and they open in Los Angeles against the Dodgers, who will have already played their opening game. They play in Seoul, South Korea against the Padres the 20th and 21st, and those games count. They are on the schedule. They count. Wow. And apparently, according to all the stories coming out of Seoul, the fans have gone nuts. When the team arrived at the major airport in Seoul, South Korea, the fans were there in the thousands to see Shohei Ohtani and Ohtani's wife and the whole entourage coming in there. Well, it'll be the Dodgers and the Padres in Seoul for 2 days. Then they come back home, and all teams open up on March 28th, which is not very far away, guys. And the Cardinals will be in Los Angeles. So Miles Michaelis gets a start, but then you probably will have Kyle Gibson or the kid who pitched down here, Lance Lynn. He will probably be. He's pitched well in spring training, but Sonny Gray won't be there. And among those three, among the older pitchers who they have. So Michaelis will get in, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if Steven Matz doesn't get a shot, too, in the starts in the early going. Cardinals have the pitchers. It's how good they're going to be. That remains to be seen.
We still have some free agents that have not signed, but one person that did sign a contract was the Cardinals manager.
He did, 2-year extension. And is it deserved? Well, I guess he hasn't rocked the boat any. I still think Mike Schilt got the short end of a deal there by a long shot, but he's the manager of the Padres now, and he has a chance to prove himself, which I think he will do. He's a very sharp individual. But in regards now to the Cardinals and their whole staff, are they a championship team? They're coming off a year in which they finished 20 games under 500. Can you make that big a turnaround? That's asking an awful lot. But can you make a turnaround? And the answer is yes, and I think they probably will, because the whole National League Central Division probably is not at championship value. And the Cardinals and the Cubs, I think the Cubs will be a major challenger. I don't think the Milwaukee Brewers will. They've given up too much. Excuse me, Zach. And the Pirates may still be a little bit too young. They're coming on. They're getting better. But are they ready to challenge? You know, last year the Pirates were at one time 20 wins and, 8 losses, something like that. And then all of a sudden it collapsed. Well, that's a team that is probably not ready yet. So I think you have to cast them in that category.
They sprinted when they should have been jogging. It's marathon.
Exactly.
I was watching the Sports Center earlier this morning, and I saw that the Padres were there already in Korea, and that they had played a game against, I guess, the Korean All-Star team.
How did they do?
1-0 was the final score of that game, with the Padres winning.
Wow.
And I think it was a total of 9 hits. So that's a baseball game.
That's awesome.
The Asian teams, Korea, Japan, and in some respects Taiwan, are all good.
Yeah,
they're very good, solid. Yeah. Fundamentally, they may not be the big bruising power hitters that Americans allegedly like to see. And they may not be the flamethrowers, although Ohtani, what is Ohtani, 6'5", something like that? He not only hits the ball when he's able to pitch, which won't be this year, he can fire it as well. I don't think Ohtani is going to pitch for the Dodgers for any great length during his tenure in Los Angeles. He's there more of a hitter than anything else. But there are some good pitchers. Yamamoto, who they have on their team, is reported to be outstanding.
You really can't read anything into spring training baseball. You just hope that your team gets through it with relatively healthy.
Yeah.
Which is always a big, big thing. My team is not coming out of this healthy. Garrett Cole is on the shelf for about 4 weeks.
But that's not the 16 weeks that had been thought of. It's
or
not a
even
tear.
a year. Yeah, it was. It's just nerve damage at this point, and did not move them to sign Blake Snell, who's one of the big free agents. Him and Jordan Montgomery still out there, not signed.
If they had signed Blake Snell, they would have had both of the Cy Young Award winners from last year on the team. That's what Garrett Cole was in the American League. But Snell, who had been with the Padres, evidently, and you have to assume this, I don't know what he's asking, but whatever it is too much because nobody wants to spend that money. Even though he's a Cy Young Award winner, his agent, Mr. Boris, is going to have to come down with the demands, and the same thing I would think for Montgomery, although his name has been dangled to the Boston Red Sox in a trade, and the trade never has manifested itself. Why? Money factor.
Be interesting to see how long these guys stay on the shelf as the season progresses because injuries and attrition just is such a huge part of baseball right now. I mean, they've already had some, as I mentioned earlier, alluded to earlier, my team is the Yankees, and they've already, as a team that's getting older, they've already had some injuries. And I know that the major thing that they're trying to do is position themselves in a good spot to sign Juan Soto. And he's been very impressive this spring, I'll say that.
Now, he becomes a free agent at the end of this year?
Yep, he sure does. But they also understand that they have a kid in their minor league system that is untouchable. Spencer Jones or something like that is his name. They're calling him a left-handed Aaron Judge. So we'll see how that progresses. When we come back, we'll tell you what we're going to watch on TV this afternoon. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Yep, we've been talking about baseball, basketball, a little bit of everything. There's spring football coming up. You going to watch United Football League?
No.
I will. I think I will.
I know you will.
All
I
right,
might catch a game if there's nothing else.
All right,
on.
that's a split. You have one here who says no and one who says you might. So I'm the tiebreaker.
And
here.
I know what you're going to
And
say.
you're going to say no.
No.
I'm sorry. That's nothing. That's not a knock at them, but it's not football season.
No, and I enjoy hockey and soccer. There's plenty of that going on right now. I don't need to watch football.
I think I'll be interested. As you guys know, I'm kind of into those startup league things. I kind of like it. Kind of interested in it. I honestly think this is a good move for the two of them to combine.
I do agree with that.
I saw some flashes of some good stuff when I watched the XFL last year. I watched one USFL game, and it was god-awful. It was terrible. I'm excited because we're going to have our own brand of football here starting in June with
June 1st.
With the Arena League coming into town with the Ozarks Lunkers.
And just to be on the correct, we can't call it Arena League. It's indoor football.
Indoor football. Okay, indoor football.
Arena League is an incorporated name.
If you've ever
Sorry
watched
about that.
indoor football, it is very exciting.
Yeah, a lot of
because
scoring.
The field is short. There are nets at the back of the end zone that you can actually catch the ball off of to score.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of scoring. It is exciting to watch.
Here is Ned Reynolds' ignorance coming into play here. He said, "What happens?" And it's indoors. What happens if the guy kicks the ball and it hits the ceiling? It can't happen, Ned. I said, "Why not?" Because there's no kicking the ball.
Yeah, you don't kick the ball.
Yeah, actually, they don't kick the ball. They just score all the time, but it's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping that somebody around here will allow us to go out and be a part of a game or something.
I would love that.
Maybe they'll let us play.
Don't think
know
you want
about
that,
that.
Joe. You don't want that.
And Josh and I could be offensive linemen, and you could be a quarterback.
Oh, no, he couldn't either. Ned Reynolds is back to throw. Well, he's still back to throw. It's taking him 2 months to get back to throw. What is this?
He's crumbling and falling apart on the field, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen anything like this before. The humanity. All right, so what are you going to watch on TV this afternoon? College
Normally,
basketball?
on a Sunday, it wouldn't be much, but I do want to go home and see how the Lady Bears fare in their championship game. They could make the NCAA tournament if they
That would
win.
be very cool.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Drury women's team do this year?
Well, they played their first regional game on Friday, and they played the number one team in America Division II and lost 102-65.
Wow.
That's Ashland, and Ashland, folks, is very, very good. Drury team was good. They were a good basketball team, but not at that level. Played them in Michigan and got run out of the ballpark. It can happen. I don't look for the Lady Bears to have that happen today. They're the number 3 seed behind Drake. But they played Drake a couple of weeks ago and gave Drake a pretty good little battle. I think they can today, too.
What about you, Josh?
I have no idea. I've got to go do some grocery shopping and stuff, so I don't know. I may just watch a movie or something when I get home.
I'm going to go home and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. With the Tournament Players Championship in golf, with the Lady Bears, with Selection Sunday coming up at 5 o'clock, you're going to take a nap?
Well, yeah, he's got to get ready for all that.
Unless there's a Yankees game on, and then I'll probably put it on the Yankees game, and I'll watch that.
I may be in the minority in this room, but golf is a great way to take a nap for me. I turn on golf, and I'm unconscious in 5 minutes.
My dad would always say, "I'm resting my eyes while he's watching golf."
Yep,
It's just too much to watch.
But
Joe.
guys, Selection Sunday at 5 is a different animal altogether.
Yep.
And then the ladies at 7 o'clock, all within the space of, 4 or 6 hours, you find out who the championship teams are going to be.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. So who's your pick for the top 4 seeds? Once again, tell us.
In the men, it's Houston, Connecticut, North Carolina, and who am I overlooking now?
You said
Houston, Connecticut, Purdue in there.
And what about on the ladies' side?
Ladies will have to be South Carolina, Iowa, probably number 2, and I suspect 2 West Coast teams, Stanford and Southern Cal, will probably be in there.
Well, there's that gas smell that we get here in the studio, and I'm not talking about bodily gas. It's just a natural gas smell. So I guess it's time for us to get off the air before we collapse and die.
Before we are asphyxiated.
Yeah. All right, Ned. We'll see you next week. Josh,
Yes,
next week, you'll be here. Great. Alex Scott should be back next week. You can find us and download us as a podcast through anywhere you get your podcast at. Just search out Ned Talk. Thanks to Brian Tyndall, Corbin Campbell, Nick Fury, and Mike the Intern. We'll see you next Sunday. Ned Talk.